school versus a PhD. Which one is harder?
Huh?
Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Jane and I'm currently an MD PhD student at UCL in London. All that means is that I decided to do a PhD right in the middle of medical school. Shocking, I know. Anyways, before transferring over to the MD PhD program, I did 4 years of undergraduate medicine at UCL. And I've just finished 4 years of my PhD. I was planning on being back in medical school now, but I've taken another year out, this CRS year, this completion of research status year, to just finish analysing my data because apparently, when you do 4 years of work non-stop, you generate a lot of data. Who knew? And importantly, write and submit my thesis, which is also due in a couple of months. As I've done 4 years of medical school and 4 years of a PhD, I thought I would make a video on which of these two experiences I found more difficult. Bearing in mind that I do have 2 years left of medical school to go after this, which I can't at present comment on. So the only years of medical school that I will be comparing are the 3 years of preclinical medicine at UCL, so that's 2 years of lectures and 1 year of bachelor's research, and also my first clinical year, which I spent in hospital doing general medical specialties like cardiology, neurology, endocrinology, anaesthetics, etc. And as for my PhD, I'm currently researching childhood leukemia using genetic engineering techniques, and I could go on, but I shall not. So I had a very wet lab heavy PhD, and for those of you who don't know what that means, I spent many hours each day, almost every day, for the better part of 4 years, at my bench or in the tissue culture space, doing very practical experiments. Now, I am currently, as mentioned before, just analysing a lot of data at the moment, which just involves sitting down at my laptop all day, every day, working in our studio. So, let's get into it. Which of these two experiences did I find more difficult? Yeah, no, for sure. It's not even a question. So, my PhD is the most difficult thing I've ever done, hands down, and I still haven't finished it yet. I still have my thesis to submit and I still have to be examined. 4 years of research doing a PhD was still way harder than the 4 years of medical school that I've done. Which makes sense, it's the highest level of education, right? But here's why it was harder. Firstly, content. What to learn. Like, medical school is hard because you're being compared against everyone else and ranked. So everyone's competitive because everyone wants to do well. So that's not necessarily a fun environment to be in, which is understandable. But the actual content itself isn't actually that difficult. Now, before you come at me, she said medical school isn't hard, blah, blah, blah. If you are smart enough to get into medical school, then you're smart enough to learn everything that you need that gets taught in it. That is a fact that I stand by, accept it, okay? The content itself isn't that hard. There just isn't enough time to learn all of it comfortably, stress-free, before your exams happen. I stand by that, fight me. And that's the thing though, with medical school you just have to learn the material. It's already there. There are already guidelines that you have to learn. We know that if a patient presents with X, Y, and Z symptoms, they're likely to have these conditions. And so you do these investigations and these results confirms the diagnosis. But with a PhD, you're doing something completely new that no one has ever done before. That is literally the whole point of that degree. There isn't a book or a lecture that will teach you everything that you need to know. The whole point of your PhD is to discover something new, which is really cool. But it also means that everything that you know about how to do school, i.e. learn material that you can regurgitate in an exam, goes out the window. And being faced with this unknown, this blank canvas, and being asked to paint a picture yourself is difficult. Even more so because you'll have to learn how to paint this picture from scratch, whether that's learning how to code in our studio or learning practical experimental techniques like single-cell RNA sequencing. And that's the other thing, with medical school you probably know how to learn from school. Read books, attend lectures, make notes, make flashcards, practice questions, etc, etc. But with a PhD, when you first start you probably don't know what you're doing. You'll have to learn all of these techniques from scratch. And not just practical things either, you'll also have to learn how to think like a scientist, but more on that later. So you'll spend weeks running experiments that might repeatedly fail. And if you've just started your PhD, that might be because you don't quite know what you're doing yet, which is okay, but it's still disheartening, right? And if you're a couple of years into your PhD and things still fail, that might be because the science just hasn't worked, and that's definitely disheartening. Luckily for me, things have worked out for my particular project, but scientists can spend months or even years of their life working on something to have it amount to nothing, because the science just hasn't worked out. And these repeated failures are difficult to reconcile with. Now, the most difficult yet invaluable thing that my PhD has taught me so far is how to think like a scientist. Now, going from a medicine background into pure basic science is really difficult because medicine, at least the way we learn it at our level in medical school, is very pattern recognition based. As before, a patient comes in with X, Y, and Z symptoms. We suspect they probably have these conditions, so we're going to do these investigations, etc, etc. We just learn things in medicine. We don't necessarily always learn why things happen. Now, that does depend on the medical school you're at and who you are as a person, etc, etc. But I feel like it's pretty safe to say that most of the time, we just need to know the protocols, right? At least to pass our exams, which is all I can talk about because my experience in medicine is limited to 4 years of undergraduate medicine. Let's bear that in mind. That is the context within which this whole video is being filmed. Whereas with science, all we do is try to understand why things happen. You go from memorizing material in medical school to suddenly thinking way more critically and questioning everything that you do. You think you've done the perfect experiment, you've got results and you've drawn conclusions. And then your supervisor goes, but why did you do that experiment? What about trying this one instead? Have you thought about these caveats? Your conclusions only hold given these conditions and circumstances, and you didn't specify that. Your conclusions are therefore not widely applicable or transferable in any way, and you need to rephrase them. Wait, you missed out one of 5 control conditions. Your conclusion is therefore invalid because you cannot definitively say that X causes Y. You need to redo the whole thing with this extra control and then we can talk. You get the idea. But anyway, there we have it. 4 reasons why doing a PhD is harder than medical school, with the caveat that I've only done 4 years of both. I hope you found this video interesting, and if you're thinking about doing a PhD but you don't know what to do it on, check out this video next. Also, hit that subscribe button for more medical school and PhD chats. I will see you guys next time. Bye for now.